Welcome in, Carolina Panthers fans. Today we are here to give you a breakdown on the state of the defense heading into the 2025 offseason. Now, I've already put together a video of the offense. If you have not had a chance to go back and look at that, do it. There's a lot to address, and considering some of the changes that we've seen at the running back position, I think it's going to change our outlook on what the offseason may look like for the Carolina Panthers. But if we're being honest, a majority of the offseason for the Panthers is going to be focused on the defense. We want Dan Morgan, Brant Tillis, and Dave Canales, the brain trust there, to copy and paste everything that they did for the offensive side of the ball. Offense wasn't perfect this year, but it was greatly improved, and we improved directly in the trenches, which is one of the biggest needs for the Carolina Panthers. I look at the defensive side of the ball, and I think we are in a very similar state. There are a lot of needs. And so as we start to get into the draft and talk mock draft and prospects, I think it's going to be best player available on the defensive side of the ball. Now, that's also, there should be a note that we know we need a true number one wide receiver, whether that comes through free agency, which I would prefer with a veteran, or we tried to, or a trade, or we try to do something through the draft. I think that need is going to be met. Now, one thing we can eliminate right now is the addition of a quarterback through the draft. So if you're planning and thinking about next year, know that like the talks already that we've heard are going to be a focus on the edge position, defense first. That's not saying they don't draft a late round quarterback, but I still think they go the route of free agency to bring someone in as a reliable veteran backup to give Bryce Young a run. I don't know if Dave Canales wants to deal with a quarterback battle, but, considering that he's probably going to want to go from 3 to 4 to 5 wins, whatever we land on this year, into getting close to the playoffs, or at least 7, 8, 9 wins, I think changes are going to happen. We have to push it. But let's talk about the defensive side of the ball. One position in particular on the interior defensive line is defensive end. So taking a look at who's going to be a free agent, LeBron Ray, who's defensive end, and Deshaun Williams are both free agents. Chai Tuttle is still under contract. He's a defensive tackle, as well as Jaden Crumedy. We haven't seen a lot of Jaden Crumedy this year. He was coming off the injury. So for me, need right out of the gate. And you also look at Jonathan Harris, who's a defensive end. We need some help. And there's going to be a lot of names that are going to be thrown around. You cannot go wrong with interior defensive line paired along either a nose tackle or an end or an edge. All three of those are going to be critical pieces for us to address heading into next year. So you have 3 free agents on the defensive line. A'Shawn Robinson is still under contract. Derek Brown will be coming back, hopefully much healthier and ready to go. And maybe we can pair someone in on the interior as a tackle to really give you a 3-headed monster. And who knows, we may be even talking about a new defensive scheme next year. That's one thing that's maybe being overlooked. Could we be going back to a 4-3 if Evero is not here? The outside linebacker position, hands down, we need pass rushers. And maybe you stack a pass rusher as the number one need, depending on who's available, but we need it. I guess you could say somewhat good news is Clowney, again, is under contract, so you'll have him for another year. DJ Johnson as well, although we just haven't seen a lot out of him. You also have DJ Wonham, who has shown that he can potentially be that reliable piece, but he still needs somebody opposite. And Amari Barno. Those are your 4. Cam Gill is a free agent, although, there's not a lot of expectations out of him. So go ahead, chalk that one up as well. Linebacker, that is one where we're just hurt across the board right now with Trevin Wallace, Claudin Cherilus, and Shaq Thompson out, running a duo of Josie Jewell and John Radigan heading into the final weeks of the season. Linebackers in need. I don't know if Shaq Thompson is brought back. He's been great for Carolina as far as everything that he embodies in the culture. I don't know if the Panthers are going to be willing to bring him back, considering what we would now call, a history of being injured. I'm all about finding one. I mean, whether we bring in a free agent and potentially drafting one, I think there are bigger needs on the interior line. Not to say that we don't need a good linebacker, because we've seen what that can do in Carolina, but it may be a little bit lower on the list, and you potentially try to address that through free agency. Cornerback is another position with a lot of openings. J.C. Horn under contract with his 5th-year option. Dane Jackson also on the team, who's been a bust. I'll be curious to see if they want to keep him. Shaw Smith-Wade, the rookie, also under contract. Shamar Bartholomew, who we claimed way back through waivers, he will be here. And then a Caleb Evans. That's your group. So your free agents are Mike Jackson, Caleb Farley, and then Anthony Brown. And this is the point in time when I'm recording this. I know there feels like changes every day happening to the roster for the Panthers, but this is the state and time. So Mike Jackson, I would bring back. So if we're talking about needs and what we can and cannot address, again, you're not going to be able to get everything in one off season, but I think you can do a lot of good things to take a step forward. Mike Jackson's had some down games, but overall, I think the performance has been well enough considering what we traded to get him. The value is there for us to go ahead and bring him back and then have Shaw Smith-Wade there as well. So that's what I like from the cornerback position. That doesn't mean we don't draft. But I think, again, cornerback and linebacker a little bit lower. I think we're going to be talking all about the defensive front from interior to outside the linebackers across the board. Last position of need, and man, there are a ton of openings. And even as I create this graphic, we now have an update. We have only one safety under contract next year, and that is Damani Richardson, the undrafted free agent rookie. Xavier Woods is a free agent. Jordan Fuller is a free agent. Lonnie Johnson, Sam Franklin, and Nick Scott are all free agents. The only one that was not a free agent was Jamie Robinson. I don't know what the value is going to be, but I mean, we look at the play of Jordan Fuller, it hasn't been great. I would expect him to walk. Lonnie Johnson's good, but he's not a starter. Sam Franklin, same there. He's more of a special teams guy, and definitely not Nick Scott, at least right now. Maybe when he comes back healthy. So we've got to find at least 2 or 3 safeties. And that does mean there's a potential to bring back 1 or 2 of these guys. And then again, sign a free agent or look in the draft. And I don't even know who's going to be available coming up next year, but one of the weaker groups. So that's it, folks. That is your breakdown for the defensive side of the ball. Since we're here, as we close out this episode, we can talk about the offense very briefly. You have Bryce Young under contract. We know Andy Dalton is a free agent. Mike Boone is a free agent. Raheem Blackshear is an restricted free agent, so we have the rights to him. Miles and Brooks are both under contract. Brooks is likely not going to play next year, but curious to see what we do with Miles Sanders. Your offensive line's intact with Ickey, Damian Lewis, Robert Hunt, and Taylor Moton, as well as Josh and Chandler Zavala, as well as Jarrett Kingston. Where we got to make a decision is on Brady Christensen, Austin Corbett, and Cade Mays. Cade Mays has played well at the center position, taken over for Brady Christensen and Austin Corbett. I think Cade Mays gets signed, and we shore up that. It's a thing. You got to make a decision. Do we like it? What we have, is it enough so that we can focus on more critical needs for the team? And so that's where I sit with that. The tight end position, Tommy Tremble, Felipe Franks, and Ian Thomas are all free agents. I feel like I would lean on bringing Tommy Tremble back, as well as, Jadavian Sanders is under contract, but bringing Tremble back and then signing someone else, possibly 2 guys, and maybe looking at the draft because there's some good tight ends out there. Your wide receiving core, it's pretty slim, man. Xavier Legette, Adam Thielen, and Jalen Coker. Your free agents are David Moore, Devin Tompkins, Velus Jones Jr. So Panthers will certainly need some receiver help. It's just going to be a matter of how they get there. Remember, we started with like 10, 11, 12 wide receivers going into training camp last year. So could be similar. Anyways, folks, that's going to do it for today's breakdown. This is Carolina Dad. We will officially be back soon with player profiles, mock drafts, all the fun things that come along with Carolina Panthers. As always, this is CD. Y'all have a good one.